You're here, which means that you've found spirit crumbs, leading you to your inner light worker. I will be sharing how these tiny little hints from the universe have led me to where I am today. I hope that by hearing my story and the stories of others, you'll pick up your own spirit crumbs along the way that will lead you to somewhere magical. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Let's see where it takes us. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Spirit Crumbs. I'm your host, 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗹𝗶𝗯𝗿. I am an intuitive oracle card reader and energy healer. Today's episode is going to be a little different. Lately, I've been feeling like I'm just waiting intuitively to find out what to do for each episode instead of trying to plan too far ahead, which has been really nice. However, this week, again like last week, I really wasn't sure, still up until now, what I was going to do. And what kept coming to mind every time I thought about what I might like to talk about was Card Pull Friday, which I do talk about on the podcast here, but it's something I do where every Friday at some point, I go live on Instagram and pull some cards for a bit of an energy forecast for the weekend and the upcoming week. And because that keeps coming to mind, I thought, well, it might be nice to do something like that on the podcast here and maybe do a bit of a longer forecast. But I thought maybe just doing it when it feels intuitive. I'm not going to say specifically how often I'm going to do these ones. We'll see what comes up for us. Today, I'm actually going to use different cards. So usually I use numerology and angel cards, but today I'm going to use my Light Seers Tarot deck because I've been using it for myself quite a bit. And I've really been enjoying the light and shadow aspects of the cards and really feeling into what that card means for me in the moment. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so what I just decided to do was I just pulled 5 cards, and I am really actually excited about this reading. I think it's a really great forecast for the next little while. So the first card we have here is the King of Wands, and this man is holding a torch, and behind him is a lion. And I'm sure you've heard me talk a little bit about lion energy here. I know I talk more about it on Instagram because I was talking a lot about the Lionsgate portal on August 8th. And I had been feeling that energy for a couple of months before it. And even up until last weekend, I was still getting messages around lions for myself and the strength card as well. And so for me, this card really does, I do focus a lot in on the lion energy right now and really having the courage to stand up for what you really want in life, and also really acting from a place of love. That lion-hearted energy is what's coming through right now. The main meaning of this card is about entrepreneurship and really feeling confident about your abilities and also having a really spiritual foundation for that business. And so again, going back to the heart and to the lion, like that's like a heart-centered business to me, something that you feel you're going to be able to lead others or help others with something is what's really coming to mind. And then the second card is the 4 of Cups. So there is a woman sitting down. She's kind of looking off to one side, leaning her hand on her face, and she has 3 bowls or cups to her left. Well, when I'm looking at her right, I guess. And then on the other side, there's this bowl that she's not looking at. Her fingers are grazing it, and there's a rainbow coming out of it, but she's not really looking at it. And I think that a lot of us are kind of in this situation right now where we are just looking at all the things that we're not able to do, or that we have not been able to do for a while, or things that are going wrong. Whereas if we were to just really focus our attention on what is really going well, or what the potential is of some other options that maybe have a bit of a more difficult path or seem like they would be a lot of work, but they would have a really beautiful outcome. And that I'm seeing as a perspective shift, and us just looking at, look, the things aren't going to always go the way we want them to. And yes, we may have a lot of obstacles, and it's okay to grieve those. It's okay to have those moments where we're just feeling the loss. But it's also important that in order to keep going, that we look at where our opportunities lie And fours for me are always about foundations. And so really thinking about if we're going to build a foundation for our future, that is wherever our mindset is focused. And so if we're focusing on all of the negative things, we're really not giving ourselves the opportunity to build something new and exciting. And it's funny because the next card is a lot very similar to this. So I feel like this is an energy a lot of us are experiencing because the center card is the Two of Wands. And so there's like a floor to ceiling window that this woman is kind of leaning towards, and she's sitting on the floor, and she's holding one wand in her hand that's leaning out towards the window. And there's one behind her, just like up against the wall. And in front of her, she has a globe, and she has a little image of a traveling van or like little motorhome. And what this card symbolizes is a choice. Often twos, it's a Two of Wands. Often the twos are about either partnership or making a choice. And for this, it's talking about how the one wand leaning up against the wall is like the familiar and the comfortable and what's a little bit safer. And the one leaning out towards the window is the option that might be a little bit less comfortable. It might be, the unknown, something that's a little bit scary to us, but the only way to move towards our dreams is to find out what's on the other side or where that's leading us. And I think that the fact that there's the globe and the little images that represent traveling, I think that tells us that the only way to travel is to leave where we are, to leave our home, right? To leave what is comfortable and safe. And together with the other one, with the Four of Cups, it's kind of telling us that if we're going to only do what is familiar, sometimes that's going to get really dull. And that's why I think the woman who is in the Four of Cups is just feeling disappointed and maybe a little bit depressed because she's only seeing these negative things and she's not looking at the opportunity. The opportunity seems to be leaning the same way in both of them. It's on the right side of the card. It's that like turning your head the other way. And so the Two of Wands, at least she's looking out in the direction of the unfamiliar. And that's a really positive thing. I think once we start to shift our mindset, all we literally have to do is look the other way. And then we see that this wand is pointing out where this magic might lie. The card after that is the Magician. And I love this card in this deck because the way it is described is practical magic. And so it's the number 1 in the deck. And so it's the second card. And this is one that tells us that we have everything that we need in order to manifest what we want. It has the infinity symbol on the figure's head. They're sitting cross-legged and they have a hoodie on, and they are looking down at this kind of portal, like whirlpool, and their hands are creating another infinity symbol. This card talks about practical magic. So you have all the support, you have all of the support from the universe, and you have all of the physical things you need in order to move forward. It's just a matter of figuring out the alchemy and like how you're going to do this. And all that really takes is your intention and taking the action steps forward. That's what's coming through for me with this. I've been getting the symbol of like a whirlpool or vortex a lot for the last while. And I actually had a day about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, where I was doing a meditation, and in my hands, which she has like light coming out of her hands feeding into this, my hands were looking like hands, but the surface of them was like the cosmos. And then there was this whirlpool pulling into them. And I had this intuitive download that it was my healing energy that I have for doing my energy healing and also just manifesting what I want in my life and what I see coming forward for myself. And this image, I've pulled this card many times for myself, but I've never noticed this whirlpool in the middle. And what's funny is when I had that image, when I came out of the meditation, my thought was, I should find out what that's called, that whirlpool. And then even when I thought that, I was like, why do I need to know what it's called? So I realized it was my guides leading me to do that research and find out. And I forgot. I when, started my daily routine or whatever. And then I had a session with someone in the initiation circle, and they received an energy healing from me. And one of the images they got was of this same phenomenon, and they used the technical term, which is a maelstrom. And when they said it, they asked if I knew what that was when they used the term, and I said, no, what is that? And when they described it to me, I was like, oh my gosh, you are giving me the answer from my meditation that I was supposed to receive. And it's really magical that this is coming up now, because I think that it's also a message for me and showing me how that can show up for myself. It's also a sacred geometry, the spiral as well. And so what's really interesting, which I'm just noticing now, is actually coming up in the next card. But what I've been feeling towards this symbolism myself is the idea that it can resurface somewhere else. I did read that at some point about like the actual current of a maelstrom and how it can like go all the way down to the rock bottom and come back up somewhere else. And so rebirth is what I've been feeling a lot around this, and like divine influence and divine inspiration, because this is something that shows up naturally in the world, this shape. So knowing that we have the universe within us as well, because in my hands, like I said, I saw that as a cosmic symbolism of us being reborn in this lifetime, but we came from the cosmos. And so just keeping in mind that it's all about cycles, which I talk about a lot, even in like the death and rebirth and processing endings, all of those things. And so I really do feel like that's why this is showing up so strongly for me right now as I'm reading it. And like I said, the next card also uses this symbolism and kind of lends some insight to that whole idea of divine inspiration, because it's the Ace of Swords. And in this deck, there's someone facing to the right, and it's their side profile. And where their head is a spiral staircase going downwards. And it looks like a shell, like you would see the spiral symbolism in. And it has the one raven, because in this deck, they use ravens in the swords deck as the symbolism. And then there's other sacred geometry shapes above, including an infinity symbol. And what this says to me is, because there's also light going right into the center where all of the spiral is leading, that is the intuitive downloads that this card talks about. It talks about receiving clarity and divine inspiration and information. And so going from the magician to this next image with the eyes closed, so she's looking down, and then the next one she's looking up, and they're really focusing on what's coming through there. And so I think going from the magician to the Ace of Swords, it's saying like we have everything that we need. And then going into the Ace of Swords, we really just need to allow that to come in and trust that we will receive what we need in order to move forward. So from that practical magic, it's also a reminder that once we receive the divine inspiration, it's up to us to take that and run with it. And so I'm feeling like for the next little while, we're going to be a little bit more inward facing and making some decisions. I feel like a lot of people, this kind of came up in Card Pull Friday, about people having to go back to routines where either they're going back into the office where they haven't been for a while, or the kids are going back to school, or they're going back to school. It's just looking at the fall and like, what are we building for ourselves? Like, where's our focus? And if you don't want to go back to your routine, if you're really feeling like that's not the right thing for you, then right at the center of this reading with the Two of Wands, we're told we have a choice. We can look in the other direction at new possibilities. And yes, it can be frightening to look into the unknown, but to keep in mind that we do have everything we need. We have the Magician and the Ace of Swords, which are both ones. They're both a beginning. That is a very powerful message, that we do have the opportunity to start something new right now. September always has that feeling of new starts. And so it's not surprising that this is the message we're getting, but really remembering that we started out with the King of Wands, which is a spiritual led leadership and even like a new business. So whatever the ideas are that are really coming back to you, having the courage to move through any limiting beliefs that you have and choose to believe in what is possible. So you'll have to let me know if you enjoyed this episode, doing a bit of an oracle forecast. I feel like it's something that I'll do occasionally, just when it feels like the inspiration is going to strike. If you're looking for this on a more regular basis, like I said, I do Card Pull Friday on my Concrete and Crystals Instagram on a weekly basis. I don't usually miss a Friday, although it does happen occasionally. But I feel like this was a message that just needed to come out for myself even as well. And if you're looking to work with me going into the fall as you start to do your own development and start looking at which direction you might go, I do these intuitive readings on an individual basis. I also do energy healing and coaching as well. I have my soul blend sessions, which you get to choose what modalities you'd like, and it's a longer session. It's a 90-minute session. And you can choose from intuitive oracle card reading, shadow or light worker coaching, and also energy healing. So I look forward to hearing what you think about these going forward, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Spirit Crumbs. You can find me on Instagram for this podcast at Spirit Crumbs. Or you can also find me at Concrete and Crystals for my own spiritual offerings and more tidbits about my own journey. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.